Okay, I think I'm on top of things this morning. Let's see. That's off, that's off, that's off, that's on. And the stream appears to be live. I think it's live. Okay, time to get going. Hello, Shadowcat back. I've been waiting for this one. I was a little unhappy with the way things went last week. Didn't get enough done. That's okay. We're going to make up for lost time today. It's funny because we're literally going to be doing just like a blitz of keywords today to try and make up for lost time. I'm going to try to get like 20 of these things done. And that's kind of a lot. So if we were going to try for 20, we gotta think about this. How do we actually do that? Well, I know this one very easily from just running tabletop games, because in Dungeons and Dragons and in Pathfinder, a single turn is 6 seconds. And that means that a minute is always 10 turns. Well, we can always scale that up too. That means that if we wanted to break up an hour into 6 or 10 segments, each one would be about 6 minutes long. A 2-hour stream means that we would get 20 done. So I can allocate a whole 6 minutes to each one of the keywords, and we'll get 20 of them done. That is so not gonna happen. But hey, goals, okay? Goals to strive for. And besides that, number one, Daybound and Nightbound are gonna be super easy. I looked at them, I thought about them. There's nothing for us to do here. Secondly, though, we actually do have Blitz down here, so that should be fun. But you can't see that because I haven't brought anything in yet. So, without further ado, why don't we go ahead and bring in our spreadsheet, because we're going to need that. We'll bring in our browser, because we're going to need that too. And we'll bring in our chat, although you can't see that. I don't actually have a way to show chat on here. Maybe I should do that. All the other streamers do that. Should I have chat on here? I don't usually have a lot of chats to show, but maybe. Maybe. Speaking of chat, though, when I check the chat, I see that Blizzard Star is in here. Hello, Blizz. It's good to see you here. And I think it is about time for us to go ahead and get started before we lose too much. So, without further ado, Daybound and Nightbound. And honestly, that's way too far. I just want to kind of back this over a little bit. There we go. Daybound and Nightbound. Okay. So, finding the wiki. Where is the wiki? There it is. Daybound and Nightbound is really simple, actually. Essentially, all you have to do is whenever you do an action. So it says right here, if a player casts no spells on their turn, it becomes night on the next turn. If they cast at least 2 spells during their own turn, it becomes day on the next turn. Basically, you keep flipping between day and night, and you use these fancy cards to keep track of it. It's probably actually one card and just double-sided. Probably. I see no reason why we should do this, because this is introducing like time mechanics into the game, and that's generally a bad idea. And it seems like it was a bad idea because even here, they admitted that no one really liked this. There was a helper card. Yeah, in retrospect, the R&D considers Daybound Nightbound to be a mistake, likely because of the tracking issues and complicated gameplay. They don't expect to bring it back in the future for anything, honestly. We're going to just kind of skip this thing entirely, because essentially all of these cards are, like, this guy is a werewolf, and this guy is a werewolf. I'm willing to bet that they're pretty much all werewolves. And so, all we gotta do is just treat them like we would a normal werewolf. If it's night, go ahead and give them werewolf. If not, then they can become whatever. And so these are both the same card, I do believe. I think the Tavern Smasher is just... Yeah, I think this is all the same card. So you can play the Tavern Ruffian for 4, that's 3 plus red. And then if it's nighttime, you flip him to the Tavern Smasher. And that's all you really need. So for Daybound and Nightbound, all I'm going to say is... use the Daybound side during the day, and the Nightbound side at night. Super simple, because, like, there's not a whole lot to consider there. If it's day, it's day. If it's night, it's night. It's been doing this since the beginning of time. Okay, then. So we can skip this one and move on. Go away. In fact, all the pop-ups need to go away. You go away too. Alright, next up is Disturb. What is this? Disturb is a keyword ability introduced in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, which is connected to creatures resurrected in spirit form. Well, we've already done this before. We've done lots of stuff with spirits. Disturb was also used in the Innistrad Crimson Vow. So you may cast this card from your graveyard transformed for its Disturb cost. If you pay extra, will it drop a new album? Asking for a friend. Anyway, let's take a look. So again, we've got double-faced cards here. So front face, back face. The front is the Bait Hook Angler. And that is just a blue creature, costs 1+ blue to play. There's nothing special about it except for it has Disturb. So when it's killed, it's put into the graveyard. You can pay 1+ blue, and it becomes the Hook Haunt Drifter, which is a 1/2, and it has flying. And if it would be put into the graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Okay. I mean, that's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot for us to do because this is kind of the same as Unearth, which is also kind of the same as Encore. So, honestly, we can just kind of copy that. And I see that JP is now in the chat. Hello, JP. Good to see you. See, this is why I need to have, like, the chat up on screen. That way I can maybe see better. No, because then it's on my bad side. I wouldn't see it anyway. Okay, where is Unearth? I know it's up here somewhere. There's Unleash. There's Undying. Unearth. It's right there. So I'm going to go ahead and borrow this. Alright, paste that in. So, this spell can be cast without using a spell per day if the spell has already been cast. Do this only after the creature has died and only once per spell cast with Unearth. Well, we're going to have to change this a little bit. Because it's not unearth this time, it's disturb. And does it tell us to flip the card? Yes, it says you may cast this card transformed from your graveyard for its disturb cost. Since the instruction is on there already, I don't really feel the need to put it on. Yeah, because we've already established the new rules how the card is played because we don't actually have a graveyard. The rest of it is on the card and it will be fine. I mean, this is kind of the nice thing about tabletop games is that we can allow ourselves a little bit, just a modicum, of wiggle room for interpretation. Players are not machines. They do not need to have everything spelled out in the most literal language. And this is why rules lawyering exists. There is argument to be made. So we can keep the flavor text on the card, we can add the flavor text here that we're using, and together, those will give us a fully functional rule. Alright. And so JP said the first thing that I heard was disturbed as well. I mean, it's the first place I went. I'm a bit of an audiophile though, so I can't help it. I will find music in pretty much just about anything. JP also says there's nothing special about it. Rude. Maybe. Maybe that was rude. I'm not apologizing though. I'm a very rude person. Okay, moving on to Decayed. So, Decayed is a keyword ability introduced in Innistrad, the Midnight Hunt. It's only on 20 cards. This creature can't block. When it attacks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. So, I'm going to assume that these are going to be cheap. Cheap little one-shot creatures. The Hobbling Zombie, for example. It's a 2/2 zombie that costs 2+ black to play, and it comes with Death Touch. Of course it does. And when the Hobbling Zombie dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. It can't block. When it attacks, it also dies. Okay, so... the actual Hobbling Zombie doesn't have Decayed. That's interesting. I was expecting the creature to actually have it when you played it, but no, the token it creates has Decayed. So the Hobbling Zombie actually can block. It's just when you kill it, it doesn't die, essentially. It becomes a token creature that can't block. That's interesting. I do not see the need to change this wording at all. Well, okay, there is something that needs to change. So I'm going to paste this in, and then we're going to reformat so it's readable. Okay. So it says this creature can't block. Well, we don't have blocking. We have attacks of opportunity. So this creature can't make attacks of opportunity. And when it attacks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. Now, it doesn't say sacrifice it at the end of combat in general. It's only when it attacks. So this thing can actually sit there for as long as it needs to. I'm going to go ahead and say when the creature attacks, it dies at the end of its turn. That's much better language for Pathfinder. I mean, this takes all the agency out of your hands. You're not going to sacrifice it. When it attacks, it dies. Period. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, unless you have cards that literally prevent death, I guess. Which, I mean, you kind of do. Okay, and JP says, Disturbed, Decayed, and Deranged? I don't know if we have a Deranged. Do we have a Deranged? No, we don't, unfortunately. So, instead, we're moving on, and the next one on the list is Cleave. This ought to be interesting because Pathfinder already has a Cleave. It's a feat. So what does Cleave mean here? Cleave is a keyword ability introduced in Innistrad. It can only be found on instants and sorceries offering an alternative cost. Interesting. So another way to cast spells. Okay, it says you may cast a spell for its Cleave cost. If you do, remove the words in square brackets. You know, I kind of hate these cards. Some of these cards are so esoteric. Now we actually have to modify the wording on the card. This is not the first time that we've had this pop up. I didn't care for it last time. Now it's actually starting to annoy me. Thank God it's only on 12 cards. Let's take a look at one of their examples. So we've got Dig Up. So Dig Up says this. It costs 1 to play, and it says search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. However, if you play the Cleave cost, which is 1 plus 2 black plus green, and I'm just going to look down here, it becomes search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And while I understand that, you know, this becomes a much more powerful card if you pay the Cleave cost, I just hate the way they do it. I understand why they did it, but I hate the reason they did it. So, there's nothing we really need to do here. If you cast a spell for its Cleave cost, which is fine because it already has the cost, we can read that cost and translate directly. If we do, remove the words in the square brackets. We've got that too. This is actually fine the way it is. These instructions are simple enough. And then we'll just format this. And JP says, no, I am not a-noid. I am anoid. Okay, there's a difference. I am not the noid. I'm just anoid. Totally different word. Also, that guy was creepy. Even as a kid. Okay, next one. Like I said, we're going to try and blitz through as many of these as we can because we got to make up for lost time from last week. The next one is Training. Okay, so for the counter of the same name, we got Training counters, but we don't care about that. Training is a keyword ability introduced in Innistrad. Man, there's a lot of stuff that came out of Innistrad. But then again, I think it kind of came out like Ravnica, where you had a whole bunch of like unique abilities, but they were only on 12 cards, which just super complicates things, and it kind of sucks. So this is for humans of Innistrad. It's only found on creatures. Training, and by the way, like I said, it's only on 12. It's only on 12 cards. Seriously, this is only on 11 cards. And JP says, watch for rabbit holes. Okay, the first problem there is that you put a rabbit up, and I love bunnies. Alright? So, like, that is not helping. You can't do that to me. Okay, focus. We can do this. Alright, whenever this creature attacks another creature with greater power, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. I mean, that shouldn't be that difficult to translate. Whenever this creature attacks a creature with greater power, since power is strength, the creature with greater strength, does mean that we have to keep track of these things. We're going to take this almost word for word. So whenever this creature attacks a creature... Actually, I'm not going to do that. Whenever this creature attacks something with greater strength. Now, I do that because creatures are going to be specifically referred to as anything summoned by a planeswalker. However, if you're a player character or if you're an NPC or whatever, and you have greater strength in this thing, it should still trigger. I do not see a reason to limit it to creatures only. So whenever this creature attacks something with greater strength, and let's see, it is not until end of turn, so this creature gains a +1 strength and +1... Wait a minute. What happened? Where did my words go? Whenever this creature attacks something with greater strength, it gains a +1 strength and +1 constitution counter bonus. There we go. Super easy. I mean, it's not a complicated ability. If it's got a higher power or a higher strength, it gets a bonus. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And so, down here they've got the Griff Rider. It's a white creature, costs 2 + white to play. It's a 2/1, it's got flying, and it's got training. Now, granted, with only 1 toughness, it's probably not going to survive whatever you throw at it, but it's still a thing that it can do. You might want to throw Holy Strength on that. Okay, so that's training, and that one's easy. That one's easy. The next one is completed. I wish we were completed. Alright, so completed is a keyword ability introduced in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Well, we're out of Innistrad, so that's nice. Alright, so this was on only 7 cards. Alright. So, Phyrexian Hybrid mana... Oh, it uses weird mana. I don't have that mana. I wonder if there's even lands for that. Are there lands for that? That could be a problem. Do I need to alter my land thing to account for Phyrexian mana? That could be a complication. We'll get to that later. Let's see. Oh, wait, no. I should keep reading. Phyrexian Hybrid mana can be paid with MN or 2 life. I need to see, like, the actual card for this one. Oh, wait, here we go. Right. So, I guess it was only on these Planeswalkers. And this is the one that started it all. This is, hold on, let me scroll down a little bit. Taimyo, the Completed Sage. And so it costs 2 plus green plus, I think that's the hybrid mana, but I'm not sure, plus a blue. And it's a planeswalker, so it comes with all the stuff that planeswalkers have. Okay, this planeswalker enters with 2 fewer loyalty counters. Is this only on planeswalkers? Let's see. A Johnny the Sleeper Agent is a planeswalker. Jace is a planeswalker. Vraska is a planeswalker. Nis is a planeswalker. Luka is a planeswalker. And Nahiri is a planeswalker. Yes, this is only on planeswalkers. Since planeswalkers are not cards that we are using, given that planeswalkers represent actual individuals, not copies of them, then this is something that holds no value to us. So it doesn't really matter how complicated it is. This one is not applicable, which just saved us time. And time is something that we're going for. We've been at this for 25 minutes already, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know what? We're ahead of schedule. We might actually do it. Okay, next, reconfigure. This one sounds fun. What does it do? Reconfigure is a keyword ability found on artifact creatures with the subtype of equipment. So artifact creature, also equipment. Cool. I love artifact creatures. The first creatures with reconfigure appeared in Kamigawa, the Neon Dynasty. So this was on a whole 20 cards. Must not have been that popular. Reconfigure. Attach to target creature you control or unattach from a creature. Reconfigure only as a sorcery. While attached, it is not a creature. This sounds so cool. It basically is the same as merge, except different. So, Simian Sling. Here we go. Wow, it's actually a colored artifact creature. Those are pretty rare. Almost all artifact creatures are colorless. There's not a lot that actually use colored mana in them. Okay, so the Simian Sling, it's a 1/1 creature. However, because it can be equipped, it can be reconfigured for 2 and equipped to a creature. The equipped creature gets +1/+1. And whenever the Simian Sling or the equipped creature becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to the defending player. Wait. Oh, when it becomes blocked. Okay, so when you're attacking and they block, it deals 1 damage to the defending player. Gotcha. Or in our case, if you actually attempted an attack of opportunity against this thing, it automatically will deal 1 point of damage to you. Is that a huge deal? Especially in a game like Pathfinder where you can have dozens of hit points. I mean, even at level 1. At level 1, if you're playing a barbarian, and you prioritize your constitution, which you should, it's generally speaking a barbarian's greatest stat. If you rolled a full 12 on your D12, they're the only ones who get to use a D12 for their hit points, and you have an 18 for your constitution roll, and let's even push it further, you go ahead and get a race that gives you a bonus to constitution, so a +2 from your race could push that up to a +5, and then if you took the feat toughness, which gives you +3 hit points +1 for every level, that means that you would get 12 from your dice, and then 5 from your constitution, so that's 17, and then 4 from toughness, which puts you up to 21 hit points at level 1. And the Simian Sling is going to do 1 damage to you if you attack, or if you get an attack of opportunity. I'm not saying it's insignificant, I'm just saying that that's level 1. and it's only going to become more insignificant over time. Still though, no one's going to complain about doing extra damage, even if it's only 1 point of damage. The fact is that this is actually really cool, and I love it. I do not see anything that I need to change here. Attach to a target creature you control or unattach from a creature. That's pretty straightforward. Reconfigure only as a sorcery, while attached it is not a creature. The only question I have is, should we be able to do this with anything, or should it be restricted to only summoned creatures? Because I'm inclined to not restrict it. If you have a creature with reconfigure on it, I mean, this thing down here, it's the Simian Sling. I have to imagine that when this thing reconfigures, it basically just turns into armor for you. Or maybe not armor specifically, but think of it like an exosuit. So its arms kind of open up and wrap around yours, its legs open up and wrap around yours, its body, it's basically an Iron Man suit that looks like a Japanese monkey samurai thing. It doesn't necessarily offer you any additional armor, but it does enhance, because it gives the equipped creature +1/+1. It will enhance your strength and your constitution. I think we should allow this for anything. I think we should. Okay, so then we only need to change the wording a little bit. Just a little. So I'm going to paste this in, and we're going to reformat it. So, attached to target creature. We need to change this. Oops. Didn't want to hit that button. Target creature I control. So you can't necessarily put it on something else. I'm going to go ahead and say attach to target. Oh, how do we want to do this? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say attach to target friendly creature or being. Because I gotta be able to differentiate between creatures and not creatures, but it should be able to latch onto anything. Or unattach from a creature. I'm just gonna say or unattach, period. Because we already said attach to target creature or being or unattach. Reconfigure only as a sorcery. Since you can only play a sorcery on your turn, it's going to be a standard action. And while attached, it is not a creature. So that seems pretty good. That means that you will be able to, and this is where things get kind of fun. This monkey down here, and I don't even know where the other 6 are, but this monkey down here costs only one fire to play. Which means that you, as a level 1 planeswalker, would be able to summon this thing. Now, reconfigure costs 2. So, because of that, you wouldn't actually be able to use that part of your ability until you were level 2. But once you became level 2, after spending a whole level being able to summon this Simian Sling and fight alongside it, once you hit level 2 and you have enough mana to use Reconfigure, you'll be able to not just summon it, but you'll be able to reconfigure it on top of yourself. Now, one thing that we may have to address is, like, how many things can reconfigure? According to Pathfinder, and I'm going to jump over here for just a moment to look at magic items. Yeah, don't do that again. There should be a doll here. Yeah, there is. So, this is a little bit cut off. But you can see that we have magic item slots. There's a head slot, headband, eyes, shoulders, neck, chest, body, armor, belt, wrists, hands, ring 1 and ring 2, because you'll have 1 ring on each hand, plus you have boots. The reason why these slots are considered is so that you cannot wear multiple magic items at one time. If you pick up 2 magic helmets, you cannot wear them both. And you cannot get the effect of both. So it's a little hard to determine without going through all of these reconfigure creatures what they should necessarily do. Because, and this might just be more flavoring and lore, when I look at the Simian Sling, it's a monkey in armor. It doesn't really have a face, it looks like it has a mask, which you can't see very well because it's very tiny. I imagine when you reconfigure, you're going to step into this thing like an Iron Man suit. Or it's going to step onto you like an Iron Man suit. Either way, that seems like it would be taking up a body slot. But what happens if you had 2 Simian Slings? Can you wear both of them at once? Well, in the card game, yes, you absolutely can. There's no limit to how many equipments you can put in a single creature, even if the creature is an ooze and you keep giving it swords. I guess then you just end up with a spiky ooze. So I don't know if we're going to have to restrict this or not. I also, and I'm not going to lie here, I really kind of like this idea. If you kept adding Simian Slings to your body, would you just get bigger? I mean, let's go ahead and just, minor deviation for just a moment. We know that size is determined by a creature's power and toughness. Okay, we've already established that. That was written into the rules a while ago by someone else. What if we could use this to our advantage? So this Simian Sling is a 1/1 creature. That makes it small. If we had 2 Simian Slings and we put them together, so I have 2 Simian Slings out and I reconfigure one to add it to the other, I now have a 2/2 Simian Sling, add those together, and it's a 4. It's still small. But what if we added those, or added another one together? We put another Simian Sling in there, that puts it up to a 6. Now it's a medium creature. But what if we're attaching this to somebody else? What we could do is we could say that, you as a player will have a full character sheet including your own strength and constitution. And let's just assume that you have a 14 in both of those because 14 is a good average number for stats. If we cut 10 out of both of those, that would equate your strength and constitution to the power and toughness of a creature. So 4 and 4 is 8, which is perfect because you'll be a medium creature, and that puts you in the medium category. Now, if you have higher stats than that, then I guess we'll deal with it then. However, throw on the Simian Sling as a reconfigured creature. That will put your combined strength and constitution, your power toughness, up to 10, which puts you in the large category. Should we increase your size by reconfiguring equipment to you? This is just a weird, kind of thought experiment. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. I don't know off the top of my head. But maybe. It could be interesting. Alright, but we're going to move on because I like reconfigure. Reconfigure is fun. By the way, can I scroll up enough? I can't scroll up enough. I can see the end of the list. I can see the end of the list. But since I only have half a screen up on the stream, you can't see the end of the list yet. But we're getting there. Okay, next is Blitz. So Blitz was introduced in Streets of New Capenna? It's the signature of the Riveteers mechanic. I've never heard of the Streets of Capenna before. And JP says, yes, it tracks that things would get bigger. I agree with you. I think that could be a lot of fun. It would be very complicated, though. Because we need to figure out exactly, you know, what do you need to do to make things bigger. And that we're just talking about the Simian Sling there. I don't even know what the other reconfigured creatures do. We could probably find them, though. Can we? Advanced search. Because I'm beyond curious here. Reconfigure. Please work. We got it! There's actually a lot more of these than I thought there was. We got 21 reconfigure cards. I thought they said there was only 11. But okay. We've got an Acquisition Octopus, which is an artifact creature equipment. There's an Arm Guard Familiar, artifact creature equipment, so we got that too. But, like, already I'm seeing a difference because this is an Arm Guard. So should this go together, or should this occupy the same slot as something else? I don't know. Let's see. And Blizzard Star says, like Exodia from Yu-Gi-Oh! Not quite. So, Exodia in Yu-Gi-Oh!, not that I'm really an expert in Yu-Gi-Oh!, but I at least watched a few episodes of the cartoon. And they showed Exodia in the first episode, so, like, that was their big hook. With Exodia, you had to play 5 cards. You needed the arms, legs, and head of Exodia. Each one of them had their own, what's it called in Yu-Gi-Oh? Their own life points? Their own attack power? I don't know. They had their own numbers, and they could be used individually as creatures. So you'd have like this disembodied giant fist that does this much damage when it hits you. However, the entire point of Exodia was if you managed to assemble all 5 pieces, you win the game. Period. It's like the opposite of a Platinum Angel. Platinum Angel. So here we go. One of the most, and it pains me to say this, it really does. One of the most overrated cards in all of Magic the Gathering. There, I said it, I'm not taking it back. Platinum Angel is absolutely overrated. The reason being is, the Platinum Angel's ability is that you cannot lose the game and your opponent cannot win the game. And no, it is not an uncard. It is not even from the unseries. This is an actual, legitimate Magic the Gathering card. Specifically from the Brothers War expansion. The problem here is, number 1, it costs 7 mana. In general, if you've already got 7 mana and you're not winning the game already, this is probably not going to save you. Okay? It's just not. Number 2, it is only a 4/4 creature. Again, by the time you have 7 mana to spend, a 4/4 creature is nothing, okay? It's not fodder, but it's middling at best. And number 3, it is an artifact creature that is not indestructible, which means it can die from a shatter, it can die from a lightning bolt, it can die from anything that would kill a creature, it can die from anything that would kill an artifact. It is extremely fragile. And there's very, very little that you can do about it. I know this because I have one. I've had a Platinum Angel for a very long time. It was one of the cards that I picked up just randomly out of a pack of cards and made everyone jealous because, oh, I had the Platinum Angel. But here's the thing. If the Platinum Angel's on the field, it's a target. And so everyone tries to kill it, which means you have to defend it, and that's very difficult. Exodia is essentially the opposite of this. Number one, Exodia, you win the game, period. Nothing else matters. Simply by laying down that last card, you're done. The game is now finished. However, it has the same problem as the Platinum Angel, in that as soon as you put down one piece of Exodia, it's getting blown up. No one's going to let you actually pull that off. You gotta have all 5. All they have to do is keep you at 4, and there's nothing you can do about it. More importantly, though, the Platinum Angel and Exodia are both independent creatures, and that's pretty much it. So the reconfigure cards can actually merge with another creature and create something bigger. Whereas the Platinum Angel and Exodia, they can't. So Exodia is not really the kind of thing that's gonna help you to get bigger or stronger. It's just kind of there. Like the Platinum Angel is. It's just there. It's good for target practice. But anyway, looking back at all the reconfigured creatures, we've got the Armed Guard Familiar. I want to take a look at it real quick. It's exactly what it is. It looks like a creature that's attached to your arm. Is that an owl? I don't know, it just says a beast. It kind of looks like an owl. I can't see the picture very well, though. But it does give you Ward 2, so, you know, that's nice. Basically, you can't be hit unless the controller pays 2. The crit creature gets +2/+1 and Ward. And then, yeah, reconfigure 4 so it can attach to you. But again, it says Arm Guard, so I have to assume that when we come back to the magic items here, we have slots for shoulders, wrists, and hands. I have to assume that the Armed Guard Familiar might occupy the wrist slot, but it's a little, it's a little bird. I cannot see this thing occupying the body slot. So, do we want to restrict these things to a certain magic item slot, where you could still have the Simian Sling and the Armed Guard Familiar? Or do we not want to even bother with slots and just let you reconfigure your creatures to yourself as you see fit? One is more limiting and thus, you know, a little bit less powerful, which means that your enemies can't do that either. The other one will give you greater power, but it will also give your enemies greater power. And PC Unicorn's in the chat and says, Platinum is fun, especially if you create an engine that makes copies of it. Well, I mean, I did say that you had to protect the Platinum Angel, and making copies of it is definitely one method of protection. If anyone has watched the series Invincible on Amazon Prime, which if you haven't, I do recommend it. However, it is very much an adult cartoon. It is very gory. But they have a character named Duplicate. Her thing is that she can literally create instant clones of herself. And because of that, she is basically immortal. Unless you can kill every single last one. Yes, that is a plot point. So, yeah, creating multiple copies of Platinum, that would do it. Let's see, we got the Blade of the Oni. And here's the thing. When I look at the Blade of the Oni, it's a sword. This is literally a sword. I guess it's like a dancing sword since it's a creature as well. And then you can reconfigure it to wield it. So now we're talking about something that might occupy the hand slot. Maybe when you reconfigure, you're holding it, you can't be disarmed of it. Best I can think of. Let's see, the bronze plate boar. It's a boar made out of bronze. And it's got trample, and trampling creature, or the equipped creature gets +3, +2, which is its power and toughness, and has trample when it's reconfigured. Again, this is basically just merge. And I'm here for it. I love it. But it could be complicated. Because, like, the boar, when you equip it, is it going to turn into, like, a body item? Will you be forced to run on all fours like the boar? I don't know. And I think it's one of those things where we won't know until somebody actually takes it and uses it. And then we have to kind of rules lawyer this thing on the spot. So, okay, enough about reconfigures. We're going to move on to Blitz. So, Blitz is a keyword ability introduced in the streets of New Capenna. Again, I've never even heard of that. It's on a whole 17 cards, and it is an alternative cost ability. So, let's take a look. It says, if you cast this spell for its Blitz cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Then sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Okay. So, unlike Decayed, where we established that the creature does not actually die until it attacks, this one, if you play it for the Blitz cost, it is on a timer, and it will die at the beginning of the next turn. No, not the beginning of the next turn, the end of your current turn. Okay. I'm going to copy this text because I think we can use most of it. But we will have to make some pretty steep modifications. So we're going to copy and paste. We'll reformat this. Not what I wanted. Format Painter. Both of those. There we go. Alright, Blitz. If you cast the spell for its Blitz cost, it gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. Okay. We have not covered drawing cards yet because that is part of the other keywords that we probably should have done first. So, this has absolutely no value to us, and the reason it has no value to us is this. Drawing a card does not give you back any more cards in your library. It in fact shortens the number of cards in your library. I mean, this is like the entire purpose behind a milling deck. Force you to draw or simply discard cards. The whole when this creature dies, draw a card thing is not going to help us. You already have access to every spell that you already know. So we can get rid of this. Next, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So again, when we're talking about Magic the Gathering and turns, every turn is broken into phases. The first phase is, I believe, the untap phase, where you get to untap all of your creatures. There is then the draw phase, where you get to draw a card. And then you have your first main phase, which is where you get to play cards. So you can lay down a land, you can tap lands, you can play spells, etc., etc. Then you have your combat phase, where you actually declare attackers, they declare blockers, and you handle all of that. After that, you have your second main phase, where you're allowed to play spells again, and once you're done playing spells, you enter into the end step. But that end step is still the end of your turn, meaning that we will simply say this creature then dies at the end of its turn. And that should be sufficient for what we need. The then part stipulates that it only takes place after you cast it for the blitz cost. Let's see. JP says no card is of no use. It can at least block a slot in your opponent's hand. That is actually not a bad point. You really have no idea of knowing what the card is, but technically speaking, if you can force them to draw, and especially if you can put them over their 7-card limit and force them to discard something, you are actually still doing good. You're still milling their deck. It's a good point. And PC Unicorn corrects me and says untap, upkeep, and then draw. I guess that only really applies, though, if you have upkeep creatures of some kind. But still technically correct. So I am corrected. Alright. And then, if we look down here at our example for Blitz, so we've got Jaxis here, the Troublemaker. Red card, red creature, cost 3 plus red to play for a 2/3. And oh my goodness, that is a lot of text that I can't read. Discard or pay 1, tap, discard a card, create a token that's a copy of another creature you control. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Okay. So if you pay 1 and tap it, you can create a Blitz token. Or you can play Jaxis for its own Blitz cost. For cheaper. I mean, it's good. It's fine. Moving on. Where am I? Oh, there I am. Okay, after Blitz is Casualty. Casualty is from the same set, the Streets of New Capenna. It is the signature Maestros mechanic. Is this just Ravnica all over again? Where we have a whole bunch of guilds that only get, or they get their own independent ability, but we're not going to call them guilds because that's totally a different set. Okay, so Casualty. As you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a number of creatures with power N or greater. When you do, you may copy this. Or Casualty X. As you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power X when you do copy the spell. They're basically the same thing. As you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power N. You may sacrifice a creature with power X. Oh, power N or greater. This one just says with power X. When you do copy the spell, Why exactly the difference in wording there? Except that, according to this bottom one, if you had a creature that had a higher power, it would not allow you to sacrifice it. I don't understand why you would need that. But I want to take a look at this. So we got an instant here. It costs 1 plus blue to play, a little chat. It has casualty 1. As you cast the spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power 1 or greater. So, I mean, I could send like a little goblin or something in. Look at the top card of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the other in the bottom of your library. Okay, fair enough. Again, this is a card that would be useless for us. At least in the context of our game. I don't see anything that we really need to change, though. So it says, as you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power 1 or greater. The other ones will just be, you know, X or greater. I see nothing there that I need to change. I see nothing here that I need to change. All of these rules fit in with what we're doing. So default format that, and then format painter. So it's still going to cost you the two mana to play it. But for this one, at least, if you copied it, you could just keep doing this over and over again. Actually, I wonder if you could keep doing it over and over again. It says you may sacrifice a creature, but it does say as you cast this spell. So I think, because as you're casting it, you may do this, you're limited in the number of times it can cycle, because you're only casting it once. Actually, I'm not sure. Rulings, let's see. You may sacrifice only one creature to any casualty ability. If the spell has casualty 2, for example, you cannot sacrifice 2 1/1 creatures. Oh, but that doesn't tell me if we could trigger casualty more than once. I'm not sure now. Wait, hold on. If a spell has multiple instances of casualty, each is paid separately and triggers based on the payments made for it, not any other instance of casualty. I think that means that you can only do it once. Per, play. At least that's my interpretation. And since I am the GM, it's my interpretation that counts. So yeah, I don't see a need to change anything. That'll be fine. So instead we're going to move on to enlist. And I'm going to scroll up a little bit. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see the bottom of the list, because we're getting close. We are getting close. Okay, enlist is a keyword ability on creatures that allows the player to buff creatures. It can be considered a modern take on banding, and was introduced in Dominaria United. Oh, good. Wonderful, we've got banding again. Did we even do banding, or did we skip that? Hexproof, intimidate. We never did intimidate. Right, because I skipped intimidate because I didn't think we needed it. But then it was pointed out that we can still use these cards, and so we needed to get intimidate. And yeah, banding was in there. So we may need to go, or we do need to go back and revisit that. But let's take a look. So with enlist, as this creature attacks, you may tap a non-attacking creature you control without summoning sickness. When you do, add its power to this creature until the end of turn. This is only on 15 cards. So as you attack with the creature, you can tap different untapped creatures you control that are not attacking. That creature, the enlisted creature, must not have summoning sickness, of course. Comparison to banding. cool. We've actually got a link right here to it. So, enlist is not a complicated mechanic besides the odd non-summoning sick clause. In order to make the comparison to the notoriously complicated banding, one considers the basics of the two-creature band in combat. Two creatures form a band. They can be blocked by single creatures, but in exchange, the controller of the band gets the choice to assign combat damage. For a favorable defender's combat, the blocker needs to have sufficient power to match each attacker's toughness in the band, as otherwise the attacker assigns blocker damage to the tougher creature, and neither will die. The blocker will take the full combined damage. For enlist, the untapped creature without summoning sickness is tapped. This is functionally similar to attacking, but without entering combat. The combined damage is reflected through a +X+0 effect, and the assignment of combat damage is a forced tactical choice from sizing. So the defender is forced to engage with only the enlister, most of which are poor attackers without enlist. Many had higher toughness, which hence results in something to the effect of forcing the defender to assemble enough power to match, while the lower toughness enlisted creature survives. Alright, so here's the weird thing, and I may have to write this one from whole cloth. This sounds very, very familiar to me. So when you pay the enlist cost, and I want to look at this. So we got this Argivian Cavalier. It has enlist, and when this creature attacks, you may tap non-attacking creatures. Okay, so there's nothing that you have to pay. When you tap those other creatures, however many it happens to be, you get to add their power to the Argivian Cavalier. This sounds an awful lot like a specific combat maneuver. So I'm going to go to Game Mastering, and I want Combat. And I think here it is. Aid another. In melee combat, you can help a friend attack or defend by distracting or interfering with an opponent. If you are in a position to make a melee attack on an opponent that is engaging a friend in melee combat, you can attempt to aid your friend as a standard action. You make an attack roll against AC 10. If you succeed, your friend gains either a +2 bonus on their next attack roll against that opponent, or a +2 AC bonus against that opponent's next attack, your choice, so long as that attack comes before the beginning of your next turn. Multiple creatures can aid the same friend, and similar bonuses stack, meaning that if you've got two friends on either side of you, both of them decide to aid you, and both of them decide to try and flank and make the target vulnerable, you get a +2 bonus to attack from both of them, giving you a combined +4 bonus, which is significant. This whole enlist thing sounds an awful lot like that. The problem here is, though, that technically speaking, there is nothing that is stopping a creature you control from using aid another in general. As a matter of fact, since you control your own creatures, you can literally order them to aid another as it is. So I'm failing here to see the benefit of enlist in our game because this is already covered under rules that already exist. Now this says that you get to add its attack power to yours so that you can do more damage. In our game, this means that you're only giving it a bonus to its strength, which is great. But again, aid another in combat already does this. But right here we can see you can also use this standard action to help a friend in other ways, such as when they are affected by a spell or to assist another character's skill checks. You can assist their skill checks. You can also assist their ability checks, including strength. So if somebody is making a strength check and you decide you're going to help them, you would make an aid another strength check, because you're using the same check that they are, versus a DC 10. So let's say that they're trying to move a rock with their strength, and they need to make a DC 20 strength check. You use an aid another against a DC 10, and if you succeed, they get a +2 on their next strength check. This is already in the game, and anyone can use it. Which means that this whole enlist mechanic, it's not just overcomplicated, it's kind of vestigial. We don't need this. And that's exactly what I'm going to put down. This is exactly what I'm going to put down. This is vestigial. Use aid another. The only difference here is that the enlisted creature can literally command another creature to aid them. So here's what I think we're going to do. Here's what I think we're going to do. We are going to command an adjacent creature to use aid another and that's all I'm going to say is aid another, because then we can simply determine what we want the aid another to be afterwards. However, this is tapping the creature. So, command an adjacent creature to use aid another. That creature becomes dazed after using aid another. Which means that you are essentially robbing that creature's next turn. Now, is this the way that it works in the game? No. Because when you're in the card game, you'll use enlist to add that creature's power to yours. That creature is tapped, your enlisting creature is tapped, you do combat damage, your turn is over, then your opponent gets a turn. In this case, well, no, actually that still kind of works out. All the turns will have to go all the way around again before the creature that you just forced to use aid another loses their dazed effect. So no, this actually does work out really well. This is actually really good. So command an adjacent creature to use aid another. That creature becomes dazed after using aid another. This is perfect. I love it. It's actually super easy. I think it's easier for us than it was in for Magic the Gathering. All right. Next one is read ahead. Okay, so read ahead is a keyword ability on sagas that allows a character to skip chapters to get to the effects they want. It was introduced in Dominaria United. Okay. This one is going to be... This is bad. So first things first is we have to talk about sagas in general before we can do anything else. So a saga is an enchantment type introduced in Dominaria. Each saga tells the story of a key event from the past as it unfolds during each one of your turns. Each separate step in the story is called a chapter. It is marked by a Roman numeral. Saga cards are called historic. There are 156 saga cards. So it's not as if these things are rare. But here we go. We'll go with this one. It is the history of Benalia. And this is what a saga card looks like. So every single one of your turns, you are going to move through one of these chapters. So, after your draw step, add a counter to the saga, and then sacrifice this one after 3 because there's only 3 chapters. Chapter 1 and 2 are the same. So on Chapter 1 and 2, you create a 2/2 White Knight creature token with Vigilance. And then on the 3rd chapter, knights that you control, and you just made 2 of them, get +2/+1 until end of turn, which means that now is your time to attack with them. Here's the deal. I do not know how I integrate these with our game. Here we got the first Eroan Games. Chapter 1, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Chapter 2, put 3 1/1 tokens on target creature you control, which could presumably be the token you just created. Chapter 3, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. And Chapter 4, create a gold token. And so you can see how it follows the story of a soldier who's entering in the games, a soldier who wins 3 events. If you have a creature that with power 4 or greater, you then get to draw 2 cards. Not sure what that represents, honestly. And then, of course, create a gold token. That's winning. Saga cards, I do not understand how they're going to work into our story. Because we have to picture this literally from the perspective of the player character. Or any character in the story for that matter. When you're playing this, what exactly are you creating? What is the effect? What does everyone else see while you're doing this? Now, one of the things that I can consider is that it is a saga, and every saga is supposed to open up like a book. Magic books are not exactly a new phenomenon in a fantasy world. Having a book that you could just read out, and then every single time you turned a page, it would create these effects. That is something that I could get behind. So if we take this history of Benalia, let's say that you found a book called The History of Benalia. And when you open up this book, as you flip through the pages, you turn one page, you can create a 2/2 White Knight creature token. You turn the next page, you get another token. You turn the last page, and your creatures that you just summoned are done, and then you close the book. In this way, I can see how sagas have a place inside of Pathfinder. But as just a spell that you could randomly cast, I don't see it. But if we go with that, if we go with that, then we come back to read ahead. And I want to look at what we've got here. So this is Braid's Frightful Return. I can barely read that. So again, this is a saga. Read ahead says choose a chapter and start with that many lore counters. Add one after your draw step. Skip chapters do not trigger. Sacrifice this one after 3. Okay, so read ahead essentially just means that you can open up the book to whatever page you want. Okay. I don't think that we need to change anything for this. What I think we need to change is how sagas work in general. I do not believe that sagas are going to be spells. I think I'm going to have to make these artifacts. And yes, I realize that it literally says enchantment on the card. I'm going to have to rule this that sagas will be artifacts. If you find the book, you can then use the saga. Now, the only, the weird part about this is, and this is really weird, we also have to remember that spells are echoes. So if you're summoning a sword because you picked up, I know a good one. I like this one. Banshee's Blade. This is not exactly complicated sword. So the Banshee's Blade is uncommon. You can tell because that's silver. And it gains +1/+1 for each charge counter on the Banshee's Blade. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage, put a charge counter on the blade. And so it is a sword that gets stronger every time you hit somebody with it. If you have this in your deck, and if you are summoning it, you're not actually getting the Banshee's Blade. You are creating a copy of the Banshee's Blade. So too, with the saga. If we establish that the saga has to be a book that you read from, are we not also summoning a copy of that book? I mean, if it works for everything else, why would it be different from this? The only difference being that when I look at this, oh no, that one's silver. This is uncommon too, which means it should be relatively easy for you to come across. Huh. Yeah. I don't know what to do. The sagas are weird. But I guess if we made them a book that you could summon, like even if it's a copy of the book, if you're just summoning a book, and you have to hold it and read from it to create the effects, it essentially means that with a saga, you would have to actually read from the book, which would require a standard action from you. So it would be in place of, say, attacking or spellcasting or anything else. You'd actually have to read from the book, flip the page, and everything else. I think that works, which means that we need to get back to read ahead. I don't think we actually have to choose anything, or we have to modify anything here. It says choose a chapter and start with that many lore counters. Add one after your draw step. Skip chapters do not trigger. Sacrifice after 3. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say that the spell's going to disappear at the end, but we're going to start with this and then we'll make modifications. So I'm going to paint this so that I can actually see this. All right. So choose a chapter and start with that many lore counters. Since we're not really using lore counters... and JP says, could the saga be treated as from memory? Wouldn't need the book. Yes, that is partially true. Here's the problem with it, though. If it was from memory, what stops you from simply picking and choosing what passage that you want to affect? As we pointed out, they have chapters and they're supposed to be done in order. So you have 1 chapter, 2 chapter, 3 chapter, 4 chapter, whatever. That represents essentially flipping pages through the book. Similarly, read ahead is letting you skip ahead in the book. So if you've got 4 chapters, you can start on chapter 3 if you want. Doing it all from memory essentially has nothing that you could use to stop that. And so we have like a combination of effects here. Because magic is weird, alright? Not gonna lie, magic is weird. We have a combination of effects that the book itself is magic. And it's magic in the same way that a magic wand is magic. Every page in the book is essentially like a scroll, where you have to read the contents of the scroll to actually cast the spell. So, with the combination of those effects, it really necessitates the fact that you have to have the actual book there. JP says, like spells, one-time use would have to be memorized again. Possibly, but then that also flies counter to how our planeswalkers are working, where we don't have limits. The one-time use thing is essentially commander format. Whereas the commander decks are only allowed to have 1 copy of a spell in it at all, and so if you had... Well, basically every spell you have works like that. The only difference being that a wizard is technically allowed to memorize 3 magic missiles, and in commander format, you can't. So yeah, I think we need to stick with summoning an actual book. But it doesn't need to be like an actual book that you have to find now. We're still going to allow it to be summoned. And it means that if you summoned the that history of whatever book, and you read the first 2 chapters and you summon your knights and you read the last chapter and you power them up and send them off to battle, the book disappears. Okay? It's now gone. But there's nothing stopping you from summoning it again and reading through it again. So you close the cover on the book disappears. On your next turn, you just simply hold your hand up, grasp the air, and pull out another copy of the book. Flip it open to the first chapter and start over. And you could do this as many times as you have spells per day. But you would actually need the book, which means that you would need to have at least a free hand for the book, like any other equipment. If you're holding a double-handed battle axe, sorry, you can't hold this spell. You can cast the spell, but you can't actually read it without a free hand. Okay, so, I'm going to kind of change this, and I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to come down here. This is not for Ravenous, just so I can see what I'm typing. When can I spell? When summoning a saga, choose the chapter to open on. Previous chapters do not take effect. The saga disappears after the last chapter. And PC Unicorn says, what if you levitate the book? Levitating the book does absolutely nothing because you still have to be able to turn pages and read through it. You still need to have an empty hand. That being said, however, there are spells, and I don't actually know them off the top of my head because they're super rare. There are spells that will do that. There are actually spells that will do that. Okay, copy, paste, and then we can delete this one. Okay, so that's good enough for read ahead. Let's move on to the next one. Let's see. PC Unicorn says, oh, I want to make a Grimoire Weiss from Near Replicant. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. But there are spells that will allow you to do that. They're actually kind of common. And let's be honest. There is something. There is something. Because... And I gotta make sure. Because I think spell books are actually like super heavy. JP says, is there a third arm card? Card? I don't know. Third arm, however, there's a couple of things that I need to pull up here. The first one, though, is I need to go to books. And here's kind of the problem. Spell books. Oh, never mind. They're actually totally fine. Spellbook is only £3. It's 15 gold. I got my gold and my weight mixed up. I thought they were 15 pounds. So, yes, a spellbook, a full spellbook with 100 pages is £3. Now, we're going to go to the wizard, and I'm going to pull up one of my favorite spells of all time. Seriously? If you play a magic caster and you do not take and use this spell, you are only harming yourself. And that spell is Mage Hand. Mage Hand is a cantrip, so anyone who can cast arcane spells can learn it. This is telekinesis, but with a limitation. And that limitation is up to £5. And the range is close. I believe the range for telekinesis is medium or long. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But you can point a finger at an object and you can lift it and move it at will from a distance. As a move action, you can also propel the object as far as 15 feet in any direction, though the spell ends if the distance between you is greater than the spell's range. And the spell's range is 25 feet plus 5 feet for every 2 levels. It is a concentration spell, though. And while it does say that you need to point your finger at an object and lift it and move it at will, there is nothing that says that you must constantly point a finger at the object. Meaning that because this is a concentration spell, once you have the object up and floating with you, you can command it to move however you need to, so long as you can maintain concentration. And here's the fun thing about concentration. In general, you do not need to make concentration checks unless there is a reason for it to for your concentration to be broken. For concentration, I need to go straight to magic. Concentration checks and casting spells. So to cast a spell, you must concentrate. If something disrupts your concentration while casting, you must make a concentration check or lose the spell. When you make a concentration check, you roll a d20, add your caster level and your ability modifier to determine the Oh, use to determine the bonus of the spells themselves. We don't need to worry about that. You only need to make a concentration check if you take an injury. Or, let's see, if you're affected by a spell, if you're grappled or pinned, vigorous motion, so if you're on like a running horse or a rampaging wagon, any kind of violent motion, any kind of violent weather, if you're trying to cast defensively, if you're entangled. So basically anything that would normally stop you from acting normally will force a concentration. But the reverse of that is also true. If none of these are in effect, you do not need to make a concentration check. Which means that if you are simply a wizard and you're wandering down the road on your way to pick up, I don't know, candle wax or something, you can absolutely have something floating right next to you using Mage Hand. And it is a concentration check, so it can float there as long as you can keep concentration. PC Unicorn says you have to do a check every turn if you have ADD. Yeah, most players don't take that penalty for their characters, at least. They absolutely suffer from that penalty. I'll give you that one. Every time you have to say, hey, it's your turn. But in general, it's fine. And let's see. JP was asking, how much does Tensor's Disc carry? Oh my goodness. Tensor's Floating Disc is one of the greatest spells in the game, if you are an arcane caster. Because Tensor's Floating Disc... Where is it? Discharge, discern value... What? Where is it? Discern, Stone Discus... Okay, here we go. Floating Disc... I spelled disc... Can somebody explain to me the difference between DISC and DISC? I would have swore that DISC is for anything that is round. And Tensor's Floating Disc is a 3-foot diameter horizontal disc. But they spelled it with a K. Can somebody please explain to me when I'm supposed to use C and when I'm supposed to use K? Is there a rule for this? Sometimes I hate English. Anyway, JP, the answer to your question is actually right here. Tensor's Floating Disc holds 100 pounds per level. Now, why is this important? So, the components for it is verbal, somatic, and material. You need a drop of mercury, but if you have a spell component pouch, you have a drop of mercury in it. The range is close, and that's fine. It is a 3-foot diameter disc of force. It lasts for 1 hour per level. This is actually your biggest problem. It lasts for 1 hour per level. Normal travel during the day is 8 hours. You can walk for 8 hours without straining yourself. Anything over 8 hours is a forced march, and every hour that you continue to walk, you are subject to fortitude saves. But that means that once you hit level 8, you can use this floating disc for however long you want. Or really, realistically, for as long as you need. For 8 hours, you'll be able to carry whatever you want. And by the way, since it carries 100 pounds of weight per caster level, that means that once you can use this all day long, it will carry 800 pounds. What most people do not gather, though, is that the floating disc can only operate within range of your wizard and moves as your wizard commands. Which means I can stand here and I can move the disc all the way around me. However, it also means that if you sit on the disc, you can then command the disc to move with you on it. So, whereas other people are buying mounts, and you, as a wizard, can get the mount spell. And I'm not joking. Mount. This summons a mount for 2 hours per level. Is it good? Yes, it's very good. Because that means that by the time you are level 4, you can have a horse all day long. However, once you have Tensor's Floating Disc and you're level 8, you don't need the mount anymore. And the Tensor's Floating Disc will go places that the mount will not. Because a Tensor's Floating Disc can float across water. It's really good. But yes, there's the answer to your question. It will hold 100 pounds per level. Yes, that means that once you become level 20, Tensor's Floating Disc will hold 1 full ton. So long as you can fit it on the 3-foot disc. Let's see. PC Unicorn says, I looked it up. It's interesting. Disc and disc, that's with a C and a K, are both correct spellings for flat circular objects, but disc with a C is more common in British English, while disc with a K is more common in American English. Look, I don't care if K is more common in English. It's for a round disc, and C is a round letter. The proper spelling is disc with a C. My logic is infallible. I will not be taking questions. And let's see, JP says floating disc is a mount. It is absolutely a mount. However, it is only a mount for the wizard who conjured it. No one else can control a floating disc. Technically, anyone else can use a mount that you've conjured. So once you're level 8 and you can use your floating disc as a mount, you can give your actual summoned mount to someone else. Of course, by that time, if they don't have their own mount by now, they're not getting one. Okay, but we're going to be moving on. Next is Ravenous. Ravenous is a mechanic introduced in the Warhammer 40,000 Commander deck. And you know what that means? We're skipping it, because we are not using anything from the franchise decks. So, Ravenous says this creature enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. If X is 5 or more, draw a card when it enters. Sorry, but it's from 40k. We're not using it. I told you that we would get there. So, Ravenous is it not applicable or is it banned? It's not applicable because the cards are banned. Not applicable. I told you once we hit a certain point, these were going to go fast. Next is Squad. Squad is a mechanic introduced in the Warhammer 40,000 Commander decks. Not applicable. PC Unicorn says, that's why I play Centaur. I am a mount. Yes, you are. Also, you're banned in my games. It's not that I don't like Centaurs, okay? It's not that I don't like Centaurs. I do. I like Centaurs. But I also know that players abuse things. And when I had one player who said, okay, we have a Centaur on the team and I'm a Cavalier. If I give the Centaur a lance, and I also ride the Centaur, and I have a lance, do we get to do double charging damage with lances on a single charge attack? And I said, you know what? Number one, no, you don't. Number two, Centaurs are now banned. So, unfortunately, like happens every time, eventually somebody's going to ruin it for everybody. And they did. Okay, next up is Space Sculptor. Space Sculptor is a static keyword that debuted in Unfinity. It is the keyboarded version of Raging River's mechanic. So far, it has only appeared on the Planeswalker card Space Barrelin. Okay, there's a lot of things there. Number one, it's from Unfinity, and I'm banning uncards. Number two, it's only on the Planeswalker Space Barrelin, and we're not using Planeswalkers, so this is also not applicable. We're going to burn through the last of these, I think. Next is Visit. Let's see. Visit is the Acorn keyword ability on attractions that debuted in Unfinity. Again, we're not allowing uncards. I don't care if they're tournament legal. I am not using uncards because they're too hard to balance. So, not applicable. Next is Prototype. Prototype was introduced in the Brothers' War, which allows an alternate version of a card to be cast for less than the normal mana cost. It is unique to artifacts and artifact creatures. While technically colorless, Prototype costs lean green and blue. Lean green? Is this serious? Prototype. You may cast this spell with a different mana cost, color, and size. It keeps its abilities in types. Oh, and I neglected JP's comment. It says, JP said, eventually put the disc with a K. Alright. Can I put you in timeout? Is that a thing I can do? I think it's a thing that I can do, but I don't know how to do it. You're lucky this time. Put the disc under the carriage and carry the whole party. It is a 3-foot disc. Well, you are technically correct. You better hope that nothing tips the carriage over. Because that could end really poorly. Okay, anyway, Prototype. Let's see. They have an example here, the Phyrexian Flesh Gorger. It costs 7 to play, but it has Prototype. So, it's hard to read. Oh, I gotta move the mic a little bit so I can read this. Prototype. You may cast the spell with a different mana cost, color, and size. Okay. So the normal Phyrexian Flesh Gorger is an artifact creature that costs 7, and it's a 7/5 with Menace and Lifelink. It's going to keep those abilities, though. The Prototype, though, only costs 1 plus 2 black, and it becomes only a 3/3. So, yeah, like a Prototype, it's not as good as the full version. It becomes a black creature, though, because you're using black mana. But it keeps the Menace, Lifelink, and Ward. I have mixed feelings on this. I do. I have mixed feelings on this because I don't generally like split creatures. But I like this one. And the reason that I like this one is because from a lore perspective, the idea here is that it is literally the lesser original version of whatever it is you're trying to summon. When I look at this from a gameplay perspective, though, what I see is that you could cast this Phyrexian Flesh Gorger at level 3. When it comes out, though, it is only going to be a 3/3 creature. It does have Menace, Lifelink, and Ward. But it only costs you 1 plus 2 black to play. But this also means that this card will literally grow up with you. you can cast this at level 3, and you have a perfectly serviceable creature at level 3. But when you finally reach level 7, oh boy, do you get the whole package. You just spent 4 levels, level 3, level 4, level 5, and level 6, all 4 of those levels, playing with your prototype Phyrexian Fleshgorger, and now you get the whole thing. And me personally, I am all about that deferred gratification playstyle. I like the idea of you getting a huge payoff later on. It's why I do like some of the other cards where you can get them from a cheaper cost now at a lesser effect, which is exactly what this is doing, but it's got abilities that you can use later. Or maybe it's got a different summoning that you can use later. I think Blitz was a lot like that. The one card that we looked at cost 2, or no, it cost 4, excuse me. It cost the whatever it was. It cost 3 mana plus 1 red to play it normally, or you could Blitz it for 1 plus red. Which means that if you took that card at level 2, you could never play the card properly. Every single time you played it, you would have to Blitz it. Which means it's there, it attacks, it's gone. But once you hit level 4, oh boy, whole new worlds have opened. Now, not only can you summon it and it stays, but it can also use its other ability to summon tokens with Blitz. Again, short-term sacrifice for long-term gains. I love doing that. PC Unicorn says, what? Beta is evolving? Beta evolved into release. I mean, that's cute, except that whoever was operating, or, whoever had beta and it was evolving, they pressed the button that kept it from evolving. It's still perpetually stuck in beta. Or alpha. Like, I have games in my Steam library that are actually still in alpha release. And it's like, I can understand why you want feedback and stuff, but this is alpha. I don't think you should have released this. So there's the Phyrexian Fleshgorger that they just showed up there. I don't know why they're showing the same thing twice, but still. In terms of this, I don't think we need to change anything. You may cast a spell with a different mana cost, color, size. It keeps its original abilities and types. Yeah. I'm just going to copy this in wholesale. I think this wording works. Okay. Next, I've still got enough time I can get in a few of these. I wanted to get 20, and I think we've got 20. So next is Living Metal. Living Metal is a static ability. It only appears on the vehicle face of the Transformers cards and allows those cards to attack without requiring them to be crewed. Okay, first off, I love the Transformers cards and I want them all. But these do not belong in our Pathfinder game. These are from the franchise of Transformers, and so they don't exist here. Which means Living Metal, not applicable. And for that matter, I don't even need to look at it. More than meets the eye, not applicable. Because it's from the same series, and it just enables them to change from artifact creature to vehicle. So, both of those completely out. Which means that we can skip one, and we can go down to Formiridin. Now, I bet this one actually we need to do. Formiridin is a keyword ability for equipment cards introduced in Phyrexia. All will be 1. Are you sure we're not still in Transformers? Because we are literally like one word away from till all are 1. Okay, well, not 1 word away, but still. All will be 1, till all are 1. Are Transformers from Mirrodin? Is Cybertron Mirrodin? I don't even know anymore. It is the Mirian equivalent of a living weapon. So, when this equipment enters, create a 2/2 red rebel creature token and then attach this to it. Do I get an example? I do. Here we go. The Dragon Wing Glider. Oh, it's red. It's another colored artifact. Again, colored artifact. Super rare. Dragon Wing Glider costs 3+2 red. It is an equipment. When this equipment enters the battlefield, it's a 2/2 red rebel creature token, and attach it to that. The equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has flying and haste. But you can equip it to another creature by paying the equip cost. So essentially, it just is its own creature. I think they could have done this better, but whatever, it's fine. I guess we can actually just put this on here as is. So let's default format that. And then we'll reformat it. So when this equipment enters, create a 2/2 red rebel creature. We don't have tokens, so just create a 2/2 red rebel creature, then attach this to it. Actually, I think we can word this better. It says create a 2/2 red rebel creature token attached to it. I'm instead going to say when this creature enters, it is a 2/2 red rebel creature. So long as it is not equipped. There we go. So, technically speaking, according to the rules as written for Magic the Gathering, if you equip this to a creature and then unequip it, I do not believe it gets that creature token back. I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to say that if it came in as its own, living, working equipment creature thing, it can stay that way. However, it is a 2/2 red rebel creature token as long as it's not equipped. Then I need to add it gains its own bonuses. So for this glider thing, it says create a 2/2 red rebel creature token and then attach this to it. So it's a 2/2 token. Then equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has flying and haste, which means that our 2/2 token would then get a +2/+2, make it 4/4, and flying and haste. I think. I'm pretty sure, because that's how this has got to work. It has an intrinsic 2/2, and then you equip this to that creature token, which then gives it the other 2/2. Yeah. There you go. PC Unicorn says the problem is for Mirrodin, you do get to keep the creature if unequipped. What you're describing is reconfigure. You're absolutely right about that. I am describing reconfigure. You're right in that I did not consider the creature that I was leaving behind. I was more focused on the equipment. All right. I concede. in that case, I'm going to simply remove the token part here, because we don't need that. And it's going to be simply create a 2/2 red rebel creature, and then attach this to it. And then, yes, when we move the equipment over from this creature to the next, it will leave behind the red rebel creature. Okay, though. I am out of time for today. However, look at this. Do you see this? Do you see this? Okay? I'm going to start growing all red dragon here. Do you see? It's the end of the list. We made it. 176 of these keywords. We are finally almost to the end. You know how many we did today? We started with Daybound and Nightbound. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I wanted 20. But I guess we're just going to have to live with disappointment. It's alright, I'm used to it. So, I do not know how many of these are also going to be franchise terms, so I don't know how many we'll be able to skip. But even then, we've only got like a dozen left. We're going to be able to finish this up. It's going to be incredible. The end is nigh? Yes, the end is nigh. Just not that nigh. That's a bad nigh. Anyway, though, there is one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and it's not related to Magic the Gathering, but since we're wrapping up here, I will go ahead and do this. So I'm going to close these down for a moment just so that we got a moment. I have been tinkering with Starfinder a lot lately, given that I am currently running a Starfinder game, and I have spent a lot of time developing things for the Starfinder game. Which, by the way, just as a reminder, if you would like to play with us, join our Discord server. Okay? Join the Discord server. Then, I need you to go to the behind the screen channel, let me know what games you're interested in playing, and what your availability is. Once I have a full group together, then I will be able to go ahead and put a game together. But the one thing that I wanted to bring up now, before we get out of here, is from the archive of Nethys. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up my browser again just for a brief moment. So this is the archive of Nethys. And as I was tinkering with things, we have to keep in mind that the site that I used before, the Starjammer SRD, those are what you would call tournament rules. So in order to keep things fair and balanced, if you're playing with a structured group in Starfinder, or Pathfinder technically, they have a group of like kind of stripped down but official rules. The Archive of Nethys has a lot more rules that are not in that limited range. And as such, I have access to more vehicles. So when we did Warhammer, we did not use the starships that much, but we did use terrestrial vehicles, and I have a whole bunch of vehicles here, and we can see them here. We've got name and level, price, we got size and vehicle type, their speed, their armor class, their cover, hit points. We saw all of this. And there's even a lot of examples here that we can use. So, for example, groups like the White Scars like their motorcycles. Well, we have motorcycles. And I've got the stat block for it right here. Level 2, cost 1900. It is considered a large land vehicle. It is 5 feet wide, 10 feet long, and 3 feet high. The 10 feet long part means it's going to occupy a 10 foot by 10 foot square, just because it is. The speed increment is 20 feet. The full speed is 500 feet per round. It moves at 55 miles an hour, but we've got all the stats here. The problem is that when I was working on the Warhammer module, I was using these vehicle rules to make a lot of our machines, including a lot of the Tau mechs. Because Tau have broadsides and storm surges. I don't remember all of them. I'm not a Tau player. I'm a Mechanicus player. But I use these. However, we have mechs. Starfinder already has rules for mechs. And when we look at mechs, we can see right here, we've got building mechs and we've got rules on that, but they have a frame, they have lower limbs, which can be legs or tracks or hovering. They have arms or tentacles, they got power cores, they've got weapons. This is what we needed the entire time to build the big mech vehicles. We can use tanks for tanks, we can use vehicles for tanks, we can use vehicles for planes. But mechs should be mechs. They have slightly different rules and slightly different building systems. The question that I propose here is very simple. Is there an interest in revisiting old modules to update them? This could be done in one of two ways. This could be done between modules. So say, for example, when we finish up with Magic the Gathering, before we start on the next module, do we go back and revisit modules to update them and refine them? Or do we want to take a break in the middle of the module and do a revisit just to help kind of break up things? For example, this is the 13th keyword stream that I've done. If you are not into, like, watching me define things, this is a terrible stream for you. I'm sorry, but it is. Would there be an interest in breaking things up to go back and revisit things as they come up? Or do we simply not care at all and we should just continue doing what we're doing and I can just update things in the background without anyone having to waste their time watching it? I can go ahead and put out a poll. I can also take any comments that are in the chat right now. What do you think about it? But do let me know somehow how you feel about it so that we can change things and see if there's any interest in doing something different. One way or another, I'm interested in what you think. So I will put that out there somehow after I get done with the stream here, and we'll see what happens. So that aside, I think we're done. I've already gone over my time a little bit, so I'm going to let everyone go. I got other things that I got to go do too. So I will thank everybody for coming out today. JP says, we did over a year on Warhammer. We can update after this one. That's fair. Look, I understand it, but it does also open up other things. Like, one of the things that's happened as we have been playing the Star Trek module is a lot of changes have been made to that module since we've been doing it. A lot of lessons that have been learned have been retroactively applied. New systems have been introduced that had not been considered, with my personal favorite being the ability to push the warp engines beyond their rated operation, which has been absolutely amazing as far as I'm concerned. It has allowed the players to travel much faster than they normally would, but it's also introduced an element of risk and reward and excitement. It's been really phenomenal, but that's just one of many different systems. So like I said, I'll put up a poll and see what people think, and we'll go from there. But for today, I want to thank everyone for coming out. If you've enjoyed any of this and you want to see more, then go ahead and, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon. I do it the same time every week, You should always know how to find me, but hit the bell icon anyway. That way you won't forget. If you know somebody else who is also into either Magic the Gathering or Pathfinder, then go ahead and share this video with them. Otherwise, though, if you just like me, you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below, join the Discord. The link is in there, and I'm 99% sure it still works. Should still work anyway. Join the Discord, talk with us there, go to the Behind the Screen channel, let me know what games you'd like to play too. Even suggest your own modules. If there's a particular game that you like playing and you'd like to see it in a tabletop setting, let me know. I will give it a shot. I'm actually kind of good at this stuff. So, I hope to see you there. I hope to see you next week. I hope to see you in general. And until then, take care.